The world before this tool was a different place. Not just a little different, fundamentally different. Imagine being one of our ancestors millions of years ago. You are small, you are not the strongest, not the fastest, you have no claws, no fangs to speak of. You are on the menu for a lot of animals. Life is about finding food without becoming food. Your diet is limited. You eat plants, fruits, insects. Maybe you get lucky and find a small lizard or a dead animal that the big predators have left behind. But even then, getting to the good stuff is hard. The hide is thick, the bones are tough. You have your hands and your teeth, that's it. It's a life lived on the edge, constantly looking over your shoulder. Survival is a full-time job, no breaks. Then, one day, something happens. It's not dramatic. There's no flash of lightning, no moment of divine inspiration. It's probably an accident. One of our ancestors, maybe a Homo habilis or even an earlier Australopithecine, picks up one rock and smashes it against another. Maybe they were frustrated, maybe they were just playing around, but one of the rocks breaks. It splits, leaving a sharp edge. This edge is a revelation. It's sharper than a fingernail. It's harder than a tooth, it's a simple thing, a piece of flint or quartz with a new sharp side. It's not much to look at, but it is the single most important object ever created. This simple, sharp rock was the first tool, and it changed everything. At first, its use was probably basic. It's that leftover carcass from a lion kill, the one you couldn't tear open before. Now you can. The sharp edge cuts through hide. It slices through muscle. You can get to the meat. Here, this is a huge deal. Meat is packed with protein and fat. It's a dense source of calories that you just couldn't access efficiently before. But the real prize wasn't the meat. It was what was inside the bones, the marrow. Marrow is one of the most energy-rich foods on the planet. It's pure fat and nutrients. And no other animal could get to it easily. Hyenas could crush some bones, but not all. Vultures could pick at the meat, but the marrow inside the thickest bones was locked away in a natural safe. This simple stone tool was the key. With a blunt, heavy part of the rock, you could smash the bone open. With the sharp edge, you could scrape out the marrow. Suddenly, our ancestors had access to a brand new food source. It was a superfood. It was a resource nobody else was exploiting. It was their secret weapon. This new diet started a chain reaction that would reshape our very bodies and minds. Our brains are incredibly expensive organs. The human brain uses about 20% of our body's energy when we're at rest, even though it's only 2% of our body weight. To grow a bigger brain, you need a steady supply of high-quality, energy-dense food. And plants alone just don't cut it. The stone tool gave us that food. Access to meat and marrow was like pouring gasoline on the fire of evolution. With this reliable source of calories, our brains began to grow. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the hominin brain case started to expand. Homo habilis, the handyman, had a bigger brain than its ancestors, and the species that came after, like Homo erectus, had even bigger brains. It was a feedback loop. A better diet fueled a bigger brain. A bigger brain was capable of more complex thought. It could figure out how to make a better stone tool. A better tool meant you could get more food more efficiently. That food, in turn, fueled more brain growth. Tool, food, brain. Tool, food, brain. This cycle repeated itself for 1,000,000 years, each turn of the wheel pushing us further down a new evolutionary path. The changes weren't just about brains and food. The tools started to change how we lived with each other. Making a stone tool isn't as easy as it sounds. You can't just smash any two rocks together. You have to pick the right kind of rock, one that will fracture in a predictable way. You have to hit it at the right angle, with the right amount of force. This is a skill, and skills have to be learned. A young hominin couldn't just figure this out on their own. They had to watch, they had to imitate. An elder would sit and nap a stone, and the young would gather around observing. This is the beginning of teaching. It's the beginning of culture. The knowledge of how to make a tool was a piece of information passed down from one generation to the next, not through genes, but through learning. This creates a new kind of social dynamic. It strengthens bonds within the group. You rely on your family and your tribe, not just for protection, but for knowledge. The group becomes a library of survival skills, and the tool itself becomes a focal point for social activity. Imagine a group of early humans around a kill. Before, it would have been a frantic free-for-all, tearing at the carcass with hands and teeth. But now there's a process. Someone with a chopper works on cutting through the joints. Someone else uses a flake to slice off meat. Another uses a heavy stone to crack the leg bones. It requires cooperation. It might even be the start of a division of labor. This process also requires patience and planning. You find a good rock for making tools. You might carry it with you for miles, knowing you'll need it later. This is thinking about the future. It's a step beyond the immediate instinctual world of most animals. An antelope doesn't plan for tomorrow's grazing. A human ancestor carrying a good piece of flint does. As brains grew, so did the complexity of the tools. The first tools, known as the Oldowan tradition, were simple. They were rocks with a few flakes knocked off to make an edge. Ineffective, but crude. Then, about 1.7 million years ago, a new design appeared. It was the Acheulean hand axe. This was a massive leap forward. A hand axe wasn't just a broken rock. It was a shaped rock. It was symmetrical, often teardrop shaped. It was worked on both sides to create a sharp, continuous edge. To make a hand axe, you needed a clear mental image of the final product before you even started. You had to plan your strikes. You had to think in 3 dimensions. You had to remove dozens of flakes in a precise sequence. This is evidence of a mind that could think abstractly. The toolmaker wasn't just making a sharp edge, they were imposing a preconceived form onto a piece of raw material. The hand axe was the Swiss Army knife of the Stone Age. You could use it to butcher animals, chop wood, dig for roots, scrape hides, and maybe even as a weapon for defense. It was an all-purpose tool that remained the dominant technology on the planet for over 1 million years. Think about that. A single design used for a length of time that makes all of recorded human history look like a blink of an eye. This tool didn't just make our ancestors better survivors, it made them explorers. Armed with this technology, Homo erectus became the first hominin to leave Africa. They spread out across Asia and Europe. The hand axe was their passport to a new world. It allowed them to adapt to different environments. No matter where they went, they could find a rock and make the tool they needed to survive. They weren't just reacting to their environment anymore, they were starting to shape it. The act of making a tool also had a profound effect on our bodies. The fine motor control needed to nap a stone, the hand-eye coordination, the strong grip, all of these things were selected for. Our hands evolved to be incredible instruments of precision. The same hands that could flake a piece of flint would one day hold a paintbrush, play a violin, or perform surgery. The foundation was laid here with these simple stones, and it goes even deeper into the very wiring of our brains. The parts of the brain that are involved in complex sequential tasks, like making a hand axe, are located right next to the parts of the brain responsible for language. Some scientists believe this is no coincidence. The thought process for making a tool first, I do this, then I do that, then I finish with this, is a kind of grammar. It's a structured sequence of actions. It's possible that the development of tool-making skills helped create the neural pathways that would later be used for complex language. The ability to structure a sentence might have its ancient roots in the ability to structure a series of blows on a stone. As time went on, the tools continued to evolve. Neanderthals developed a more sophisticated technique called the Levallois method. It involved carefully preparing a core stone and then striking off a perfectly shaped flake with a single blow. This was highly efficient. It was like a production line for stone tools. It showed an even greater level of planning and foresight. Then, with the arrival of our own species, Homo sapiens, innovation exploded. We started making smaller, more specialized tools called blades. We began using new materials like bone, antler, and ivory. We created the first composite tools, a stone point attached to a wooden shaft. This is a spear. It's a game changer. A spear allows you to hunt from a distance. It puts space between you and a dangerous animal. It completely flips the script. For millions of years, we were scavengers, taking what the big predators left behind. Then we became opportunistic hunters of small game. But with the spear, and later the spear thrower, the atlatl, we became the apex predators. We could systematically hunt the largest animals on the planet. This new hunting prowess fueled further social changes. A big hunt required a large, coordinated group. It required communication and a clear plan. After the hunt, the meat had to be shared. This reinforces social bonds and creates complex rules about distribution and reciprocity. Our societies are becoming more and more complex, built around the technologies we had invented. The cognitive skills honed by millions of years of toolmaking didn't just stop at survival. The ability to think abstractly, to see something in your mind and then create it in the physical world, eventually found a new outlet: art. Around 40,000 years ago, we see the first cave paintings, the first carved figurines. The famous Venus of Willendorf, or the stunning animal paintings in the caves of Lascaux and Chauvet. What is this, if not a form of tool use? The hand that shaped a flint point is the same hand that used a piece of charcoal to draw a bison on a cave wall. The mind that saw an axe inside a rock is the same mind that saw a horse in the contours of a cave. It's the same fundamental impulse to impose human imagination onto the raw material of the world. From there, the pace of change just kept accelerating. The stone tools of the Paleolithic gave way to the polished stone tools of the Neolithic. These tools allowed us to clear forests and till the soil. This led to agriculture. Agriculture led to permanent settlements. Settlements led to villages, then cities, then civilizations. With agriculture came new problems to solve, and new tools to solve them. We needed ways to store grain, so we invented pottery. We needed to manage water, so we invented irrigation. We needed to keep track of our surplus, so we invented writing and mathematics. Each new technology created the conditions for the next. The stone axe led to the bronze axe, which led to the iron axe. The hand drill for starting a fire eventually led to the steam engine. The sharp flint flake used for cutting is the distant ancestor of the surgeon's scalpel. The desire to find better stones for tool making drove the first acts of mining, which eventually led to our entire global industrial economy. It all comes back to that first simple act, picking up a rock and breaking it to make a sharp edge. That act separated us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Other animals use tools. A chimpanzee uses a stick to get termites. An otter uses a rock to break open a shell. But no other animal makes tools to make other tools. No other animal accumulates technological knowledge over millions of years, constantly refining and building upon the work of past generations. The stone tool wasn't just a thing, it was an idea. It was the idea that you are not a passive victim of your environment. You can change it, you can manipulate it, you can take a piece of the world and reshape it to suit your needs. This idea is the foundation of all technology, of all art, of everything we call civilization. We often think of ourselves as masters of the planet because of our big brains. But that's only half the story. We have big brains because we first had the tool. The tool is what fed the brain. The tool is what challenged the brain. The tool is what gave the brain new problems to solve. We didn't just invent the tool. In a very real way, the tool invented us. It taught us to think ahead. It taught us to cooperate. It rewired our brains and reshaped our hands. It gave us the diet that allowed our minds to grow into the complex, creative, and sometimes destructive things they are today. Look around you now. The chair you're sitting on, the screen you're reading this from, the building you are in, the entire built world. Every single object is the result of that same ancient process. It's the process of seeing a need, imagining a solution, and shaping a material to create a tool. The materials are more complex now. Instead of flint, we use silicon and steel and plastic. The tools are more sophisticated, but the fundamental line from that first sharp stone to the smartphone in your pocket is direct and unbroken. It's easy to be dismissive of a simple piece of broken rock. It seems primitive, insignificant, but it represents the moment we stopped just living in the world and started changing it. It was the birth of invention. It was the first word in the long, complicated story of humanity. And it shows how the simplest idea, the simplest tool, can, over a very long time, change absolutely everything. It all started with a hand, a rock, and an edge. The rest is history.